My in-laws told me, your house is technically ours, you married into this family. My husband agreed, you don't own anything alone. I nodded sweetly, then his face turned white when he read the title deed with only my name. This all started 2 years ago when I married into a family that, to this day, I still don't fully understand. I met Eric in Austin, Texas. We were both in our 30s, and honestly, I was at that point where I wanted peace. Stability. I had been working a steady job at a mid-sized tech company, had paid off my student loans, and saved up for a house. I wasn't rich, but I was responsible. I had goals. Eric seemed calm, mature, and serious about life. That was enough for me. When we started dating, he told me his family was close-knit. I assumed that meant holiday dinners and the occasional barbecue. What he meant was more like they all live 5 minutes away, have opinions on everything, and expect to be consulted before you even sneeze. His mom, let's call her Marie, was the queen bee. Retired early. Loud. Controlling. His dad, Ron, just agreed with whatever she said. Then there was his sister, Becca, who lived 3 streets over and was basically a mini version of their mom, but with a stronger wine addiction. When Eric proposed, I wasn't swept off my feet. It was practical. He said we were a good team, and I agreed. No drama. Seemed like something that could work. Here's the part where I should have paid attention. I had already bought a small 3-bedroom home in a quiet neighborhood before I even met Eric. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. I put in the down payment, paid the mortgage, did all the paperwork, all in my name. When Eric moved in after we got engaged, I made it clear, this house is under my name. No secrets. No shared mortgage. He said it didn't matter because we were building a life together. The first red flag? The way his mom reacted when she found out the house was only in my name. We were having dinner one night, me, Eric, his parents, and his sister, and Marie says, with her arms crossed, so, when are you two putting the house under both names? You're married now. It's family property. I blinked. Excuse me. She said it again, slower. The house. You're married. You share everything. So technically, the house belongs to the family now. Eric didn't say anything. He didn't laugh. He didn't defend me. He just nodded. Yeah, babe. That's what we were talking about. We should update the paperwork. I kept chewing like I didn't hear what I heard. Later that night, I told him firmly, that house is mine. I bought it before we met. We can buy a place together someday, but that's not a joint asset. He looked annoyed. So we're married, but I'm just some guy living in your house? I said, if you need it to feel more equal, contribute to the mortgage. He didn't. Not once. But Marie kept pushing. Every time she visited, she'd drop little lines like, I'm thinking of repainting the kitchen something lighter. Maybe sage green. Or we should move the guest room around. Becca's planning to stay over more often. They acted like it was their Airbnb. I started locking the bedroom door during the day because I caught Becca snooping around once when I came home early from work. She had some excuse about looking for wrapping paper. Who looks for wrapping paper in someone's closet? Then Eric lost his job, and things got worse. He started spending more time at home, moping around. I still worked full-time. Came home to dishes in the sink, laundry everywhere. I asked if he was applying to jobs. He said he was taking time to find the right fit. Then one day, he tells me he invited his parents over for dinner. I said fine. I made chili, cleaned the kitchen, and that's when the real slap in the face happened. We're sitting down, and Marie starts talking about the family legacy. I tuned it out until she said, so we're thinking about moving Ron's old workshop stuff into the garage. There's no need to keep your things in there. My face must have given it away because she quickly added, we're just saying, it's time we started making decisions together. This house is technically ours. I looked at Eric. He was silent again. No reaction. I stood up and said, whose name is on the title deed? Marie said, that doesn't matter. You're married. It's a family asset now. Eric said quietly, "You don't own anything alone anymore." That was it. I didn't argue. I didn't fight. I just nodded and said, "Okay." The next day, I went to the county clerk's office and requested a fresh copy of the title deed. I wanted it printed with every legal stamp, seal, and notarized line on it. Then I took it home and put it on the dining table. I left it there for 3 days. Finally, Eric asked what it was. I just said, "Open it." He did. He flipped through it, saw my name in bold black letters and nothing else. He said, "What is this?" I said, "Proof. This house is mine. Just mine. Always was. Always will be. You've been a guest." He went pale, then red, then said something about calling a lawyer. I shrugged. "Call whoever you want. You'll be out by the end of the month." I haven't kicked him out yet. I haven't filed anything. But I've started packing his things. The guest room is now off limits to his family. The locks are changing next week. And I have a lot more to say to Marie. 3 days after he read the deed, he still hadn't moved a single thing. His shoes were by the front door. His clothes were still hanging in the closet. He'd started avoiding eye contact, like I was going to explode. But I wasn't mad anymore. I was done being polite. The silence made him nervous. He started trying to play nice. He washed dishes without being asked, folded laundry, offered to cook. The first time he made dinner, he set the table, poured me a glass of wine, and said, "Can we talk?" I took a sip and said, "Sure." He told me he understood my point, but he thought we were a team. That he had made mistakes, but I should have come to him instead of being so cold. He said we could see a financial advisor, maybe get his name added now that we were married. I said, "Why would I do that?" He blinked. "Because that's what married people do." I said, "Married people also respect each other's property." You didn't. You sat there while your mother planned renovations like it was her house. He didn't answer. Just stared at the wine glass. I wanted to push him further, but I didn't need to yet. Because I had a plan. I emailed a locksmith that night. The next morning, I woke up early and took the day off work. I watched from the front window as Eric left to run errands. The second he drove off, I called the locksmith and had all 3 locks changed. New keys. New codes. Everything. When he came back 2 hours later, he couldn't open the door. He knocked, then banged. I opened it halfway and handed him a box of his shoes and a toothbrush. He said, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "Nope." He pushed the door, but I didn't let go. "You're not on the deed. You don't pay rent. You don't clean. You don't even work. You're not a husband. You're just another mouth to feed. You're seriously locking me out," he said. I said, "You can call a lawyer." He walked to his car and called someone. 15 minutes later, guess who pulled into my driveway? Marie. She stormed up like she owned the place, like always. "What the hell is going on?" she shouted. "You locked my son out of his own home?" I leaned against the doorframe and said, "Not his. Not yours. Mine." Then I held up the deed. Again. "Your family doesn't live here." Never did. She looked ready to scream. "I've never been so disrespected." I said, "You've never been told no. That's your problem." She huffed. "We'll see what a judge thinks." I said, "Please do. I'd love for a judge to ask why your unemployed son thought he could squat in a house I bought with money before I met him." Eric was pacing on the lawn now, muttering to himself. Marie said, "You'll regret this. No one treats my family like this." I said, "Your family started it." Then I closed the door. But I wasn't done. Over the next week, I started gathering things. Not his clothes. I let him take that. I mean documents. Emails. Texts. Screenshots. Voice recordings. Things I saved without even thinking about it at the time. There was a thread where Becca joked in a group text about conquering the house from the inside. Marie sent pictures of furniture she planned to buy once we redecorate your space. Eric even joked once that he'd claim it through emotional warfare. It was all in writing, so I compiled it into a little PDF. Just in case. The real twist came 2 weeks later when Eric finally moved into his sister's house. Or tried to. Because Becca had been planning on it, sure, but she didn't ask her boyfriend first. Her boyfriend said no. Now Eric was living out of his car. And suddenly, Marie's tone changed. She started calling, acting sweet. We just want to make peace. No hard feelings. Maybe you could let him stay until he gets back on his feet. I said, he had 2 feet. He just chose to sit on them. She said, you're being cruel. I said, you told me the house was technically yours. Now you're begging for keys. Click. I blocked her number. I wasn't petty. I didn't throw his stuff on the lawn. I even gave him 2 full weeks to move it all out. I just wasn't going to be walked on. But here's the thing. Eric started showing up around the neighborhood, parking at the edge of the street, just sitting in his car, watching the house. I saw him once when I was mowing the lawn. He waved. I didn't wave back. Then I got a knock on the door. Not him. A friend of his, Trevor. One of the only decent ones. He said, can I talk to you for a second? I let him in. He sat on the couch and sighed. Eric's not doing great. He's convinced you're gonna change your mind. I said, I'm not. Trevor nodded. Yeah, I figured. But there's something you should know. I tilted my head. What? He pulled out his phone and showed me a picture. It was from a group chat I wasn't in. In it, Eric had sent a message that said, if she doesn't come to her senses, maybe the house needs a little accidental fire. That was the moment everything snapped into focus. He wasn't just lazy. He was dangerous. I looked Trevor dead in the eyes and said, thanks. I copied the screenshot. I saved it in the PDF. Next up? Restraining order. But we're not there yet. Because Marie showed up again, this time with a lawyer. And I let them in. Because if they wanted a war, I was ready. Marie sat on the couch like it was hers. Her lawyer, some guy in his 50s with an expensive watch and zero patience, looked around the living room like he was taking inventory. I didn't offer them water. I didn't smile. I sat across from them with the deed on the table again. He cleared his throat and said, Ms. Redacted, we're here to resolve a misunderstanding. My client, Mrs. Donnelly, believes her son has a rightful claim to this property based on his marital status and financial contributions during the course of the marriage. I said, what contributions? He blinked. Pardon? I repeated, what contributions? He didn't pay rent. He didn't pay utilities. He didn't buy groceries. He didn't pay insurance. His name's not on the deed. Not on the mortgage. Show me one receipt. He paused. Marie leaned forward. He lived here. That's a contribution. I looked at her like she was stupid. So do roaches. You want them on the deed too? The lawyer tried to get control again. Under Texas law, community property. I cut him off. Community property applies to assets acquired during the marriage. This house? Bought 2 years before the wedding. Fully paid for. Fully documented. I slid a manila folder across the table. You're welcome to check. That's every statement, payment history, and notarized record from the county. He didn't even open it. Just looked annoyed. Marie said, you don't have to be so hostile. We just want fairness. I said, fairness is him not being in jail for threatening arson. That shut them up for a second. Then I said it clearly, slowly. Tell your son to stop sitting outside my house like a stalker. Tell him to stop texting me from burner numbers. And tell him if I see his car again, I'll call the cops and send this. I tapped my phone to the DA. Marie looked shaken for the first time. But then her lawyer said something I didn't expect. We're aware your job has a conflict of interest clause for ongoing legal proceedings. My blood ran cold. Excuse me? He smiled like a snake. You work in tech security. Your contract likely has language about being involved in active civil disputes, especially anything that could go public. I stayed quiet. He said, dragging this out in court could complicate your career. And there it was, the threat. Not legal. Personal. I said, so this isn't about Eric getting anything. This is about making me uncomfortable. Marie said, if you had just played nice. I stood up. Get out of my house. They didn't move right away. I said it louder. Get out. They left. But not before her lawyer said, we'll see you in court. As soon as the door shut, I called HR. I explained everything factually, calmly. I told them I might need legal representation and wanted to be transparent in case anyone tried to drag my name into something shady. HR told me I was doing the right thing. So now I had that covered. But that night, something happened that changed the whole tone. My neighbor, Carol, knocked on my door. Older woman. Quiet. Lives alone. She asked if I had cameras on my property. I said yes. She said, check them. I saw someone walk around the side of your house last night. I pulled up the footage. It was blurry, but it was Eric. He tried to open the side gate. It was locked. He stood there, smoking something, pacing, then finally left. I didn't even hesitate. I printed the screenshot, called my lawyer, filed a police report, requested a restraining order. The next morning, 2 officers showed up at Becca's house, served him the papers. He wasn't allowed within 300 feet of me or the house now. Marie tried to call. Blocked. But then the real twist came a week later. I got a letter in the mail. Certified. Hand-signed. It was from Marie's lawyer again. Except this time, it wasn't about the house. It was a cease and desist. They claimed I had defamed her family to multiple third parties, causing emotional distress. I laughed out loud. Defamation? Her son threatened to burn down my house. She tried to intimidate me with a fake claim to my home. Now they wanted to act like they were the victims? So I called a lawyer of my own. A real one. Expensive. Smart. He looked over everything and said, they're trying to wear you down. They don't expect to win. They just want to shake you. He asked, you want to fight back? I said, absolutely. He said, okay, let's take it to discovery. Because here's the thing. Once you start legal proceedings, everything's on the table. Emails, texts, statements under oath. They had no idea I was sitting on a mountain of proof. But I was going to let them step into the courtroom first. And when they did, they'd realize I'd been playing a longer game than any of them ever expected. 2 weeks later, I was sitting in my lawyer's office when he told me Marie's attorney had officially filed. They were claiming Eric had a right to part of the house due to emotional investment and expectation of shared ownership. It was so weak it was almost funny. Almost. But the moment it got real was when a copy of their statement came in. Eric had told the court that I had manipulated him, isolated him from his family, and promised to add his name later. He even said I'd forced him to quit his job. That last part? That was pure fiction. I was livid. Not just because it was a lie, but because I finally saw him for what he was. A coward who couldn't stand being outplayed, so he rewrote the story to make himself the victim. So I told my lawyer, let's bury them. We filed a counterclaim. We included the screenshots, texts, emails, voice memos, the video of him trying to break into my yard, the group chat where Becca joked about stealing the house, the one where Marie said she was done playing nice and would use the law if she had to, the message Eric sent about accidental fire. We sent it all. Then discovery hit. Marie and Becca had to turn over their messages. Becca didn't know how to scrub hers right. Guess what we found? Becca had been helping Eric look into how to fake residency documents. There was even a draft of a fake lease agreement where Eric would claim he'd been paying under the table to help with the mortgage. It was so bad, my lawyer started laughing when he read it. We also found out something else. Marie had taken out a $15,000 personal loan a few months earlier. Why? Because she was helping Eric prepare for a legal battle, one they thought they'd win fast. They thought I'd settle. I didn't. Court day came. They showed up all polished, smug. I wore a clean suit, said very little, and let my lawyer do the talking. It lasted 2 hours. The judge didn't even need a recess. He dismissed their claim. He granted my restraining order as permanent. He added that their behavior bordered on harassment and warned them both not to initiate any more contact. Then the real twist: my lawyer had filed for legal fees. And we won. Marie now owed me $12,000 in legal costs. Eric? Flat broke. Living in his car again. Becca dumped him. She said she couldn't be part of something toxic anymore. Marie tried to negotiate a payment plan with my lawyer. He said no. She'd have to pay it in full or risk further legal action. So she sold her car. And I found out from a mutual acquaintance that she started renting out rooms in her house to strangers to cover the loss. But I wasn't finished. I filed a report with the Texas Department of Insurance for the fake lease agreement they had drafted because falsifying rental documents is fraud. I didn't expect much to come of it, but a few weeks later, I got a copy of an official letter. Marie was being investigated for attempted insurance fraud from a separate case 2 years ago. I hadn't even known about it. Guess that letter triggered something. I don't know how it ended for her. I didn't need to. That wasn't my fight. But Eric? He texted me 3 months after everything was over. From a new number. Said he missed me and hoped we could talk. I replied with a single line. You said I didn't own anything alone. Now you don't own a single place to sleep. Then I blocked the number. The house is quiet now. Peaceful. I sit on my porch sometimes and drink coffee, looking at the driveway where his car used to be. And every once in a while, I check the mail. Still no apology. But I don't need one. Because now everyone knows who the house belongs to. And I'm sleeping just fine.